This is a story about you, if you were Present Mike's daughter. Part 1. Nikki Yamada. At age 5, your grin could light up a room. The brightness of it reflected in your green eyes and short, wild, white blonde hair. You'd always watched your dad do his hair for his hero costume, and it looked fun. He didn't mind you dipping your small hand into his hair gel and fluffing up tufts of your own hair at random. "Is my hair pretty, Dad?" You always grinned widely when you asked, hands still sticky. Hizashi Yamada grinned back. You kind of resembled a dandelion, with glowing messy tufts of blonde hair. He lifted you up easily as you giggled, and set you down on the bathroom counter to boop your nose. "Your hair is beautiful, little radio star. In fact," he made an exaggerated show of looking you up and down from head to toe. "All of you is beautiful." With that he lifted you, spun you around, and set you down with a kiss to your forehead. So you never cared one bit when kids in class called you a static head, or asked if you stuffed forks in light sockets. "Ha!" you scoffed, pointing expressively. "You wish you could look like me, boring hair." And then you would collapse over in laughter, because everything seemed funny to 5-year-old you. Life was fun and full of laughter. Dad was your hero. School was your domain. Your friends were your partners in crime. Present Mike had a busy schedule and the energy to match it. Whenever you weren't at school, you went everywhere with him. You rode on his shoulders, rode in the car with him, and got to say a few things on his radio channel. His fans loved you. You also met lots of interesting people, met his class when he would teach sometimes, and other times you simply watched him mix music in his studio. At the end of a long and busy day, the two of you would get French fries, drive to a good view of the sunset, and turn on the radio. The slight staticky sound as the radio knob was turned on became magical to you. You listened together to your favorite talk hosts and music channels. You didn't always understand everything that was said, but Dad told you funny stories about the people you were listening to, from various times he'd met them, and tales that were passed around the radio community. He always exaggerated everything, delivering it with childish goofiness, and was rewarded for his efforts as you always burst into laughter. The two of you would eat the fries, and sometimes fight over them, or fight with them, as though they were many lightsabers, both of you making the sound effects. Dad always let you win, but he was super dramatic whenever he was stabbed by a French fry. Your classmates all started to get their quirks. You were so excited for years to come. You hoped you'd get Dad's quirk. You already had a pretty loud voice, but how cool would it be if it could get even louder? You daydreamed about it as you sat in class, swinging your feet. Your gaze was directed at a corner of the ceiling, but you weren't really seeing it. You were picturing yourself as a hero. A rocking, awesome hero, just like Dad. A shimmer in the air snapped you out of your daydream. A shimmery iridescence ribboned across the room. You blinked, looking around, but everyone else seemed just as bored as they usually did during class. Another shimmer in your peripheral vision made you whip your head around, but it was gone by the time you looked. You sat back in your chair, surveying the room, and suddenly, infinite shimmering beams came into focus. You could see through them, but you could also see them. They were like 3-dimensional beams of holographic light. Colorful, yet transparent. Full of motion, but only in sharp, straight lines. You blinked, dazzled. The room swam with them. "Yamada," the teacher called your name. "What's so distracting to you?" But you were too fascinated by the sight of the shimmering rays to answer. They even went through the wall. Where did they end? The light of them filled the entire span of your mesmerized gaze, and suddenly you found yourself accelerating through a tunnel of shimmering light, whipped forward so rapidly that you felt squeezed by pressure on all sides. And then, stillness. You floated in darkness. Where am I? You tried pinching yourself, but you couldn't even feel yourself. For the first time since the shimmering beams had appeared, you felt alarmed. No matter how you tried to touch your face or pinch yourself, there was nothing. Am I dead? You wondered. You heard a deep voice resonate through the stillness. Why are you alone, child? Did the heroes abandon you? Are you talking to me? You demanded. Where am I? What is this place? But another voice answered. A boy's voice, but raspy, like he'd been crying. I don't need anyone. Child, the deep voice replied, you're not alone anymore. Come with me. The boy started to reply, but the sound dropped away as you were sucked back into the holographic light tunnel. You opened your eyes and realized that you were lying on the floor of your classroom. Your teacher leaned over you with a pinched expression, while your classmates chattered and tried to sneak glances from the doorway of the classroom. Desks had been pushed back to clear a space around you. Yamada, your teacher said when you opened your eyes. How do you feel? You hugged yourself and sighed with relief. I have a body! I'm so happy! Your teacher's brows furrowed even more. Do you remember your age? How many fingers am I holding up? I'm 5 years old, and 3 fingers. You just took one down, so now 2. The teacher nodded grudgingly, but still looked worried. Have you ever fainted before? Huh? You stared at her in confusion. I didn't faint. I teleported, I think. Her worried look was starting to unnerve you. You've been lying on the floor unconscious for 7 minutes. The school nurse already looked at you and decided you needed to go to the ER. We were just about to take you there. 7 minutes? That was like 1 minute at most. The teacher shook her head and spoke gently. You'll still need to see a doctor, Yamada. They'll help you figure out why you fainted. We called your dad. He'll be here in a minute. You stood up, a bit dizzy, but totally fine. You didn't like everyone looking at you like that, like you were made of glass. Hey, stupid heads, you shouted at the kids in the doorway with a bright grin. I'm still gonna beat you at dodgeball tomorrow. Your friends, Tony and Mia, cheered happily while everyone else started yelling trash talk at you. You grinned. Yamada, come to the principal's office, your dad is here. The intercom boomed. Your classmates continued to laugh and tease you. It was all the same to you, as long as they weren't being all quiet and weird. You were content to follow your teacher to the principal's. You could walk yourself, but they seemed like they didn't trust you to not faint again, so it would just be too much work to try to get them to go away. Dad jumped up when he saw you and swung you into the air as you laughed. His grin looked relieved. I heard you decided to take a nap in class, he teased. He glanced around at the principal and teacher. I'm taking her for the rest of the day, 'kay? The school staff nodded, smiling and thanking him for coming so quickly. Present Mike didn't put you down as he walked down the school hallway out to the parking lot. Where are we going, Dad? Do I get to come with you to work? Well, kiddo, we need to figure out what just happened to you. How about you tell me about it, and then we'll go see what the doctor says. You frowned. More worrying and fussing? No thanks. After that, we can go get fries. You pricked up. Can we get an extra large fry? And have nothing but fries for dinner? A kid after my own heart, Mike grinned. Deal, you agreed. His hands were occupied holding you, so you pinched the end of his little mustache and shook it gravely. You're so weird, kid, Mike laughed. You're my pride and joy. Even more than your mustache? Yes. Even more than your radio show? Yes. Even more than your music? Yes. Way more than anything, little radio star. He carried you in long striding steps and buckled you into the back seat of the car. The doctor's appointment was boring. They did a bunch of tests and seemed confused. So they did even more tests and seemed even more confused. It took forever. When would you get those fries Dad promised? You told all the doctors about the shimmer things in the air that you'd seen before you fainted, and you told them about the voices you heard while you were unconscious. They nodded like they understood, but you didn't think they really did. In the end, they told you and Dad that it was probably just low blood sugar, and to make sure to eat and stay hydrated during school. But during the following weeks, it kept happening. The shimmers in the air, getting sucked into the shimmering tunnels, floating in the darkness where you heard voices, and then getting pulled back and waking up. You went to the doctor again, and finally, they told you what was going on. Narcolepsy, the doctor said. She'll fall asleep at random. It's not inherently dangerous. Just wait for her to wake up. But she needs to learn to live as though she may collapse at any moment. No holding knives. No swimming. No going downstairs. Elevators are your new friend. Mike frowned at the doctor. What about the voices she hears, and the shimmer things she described? The doctor nodded. Hallucinations are very common with narcolepsy. Different people see different things. I've never heard of hallucinations like this, but no two cases are the same, so that's to be expected. The doctor handed Mike a pamphlet. There are resources for this condition. You can find some of them here. It will take getting used to. Are you saying, you asked, that there's no medicine to make it better? The doctor shook his head. Narcolepsy can't be cured. He gave you an encouraging smile. It can be managed, though. You sat back, stunned. Did this mean that you couldn't do anything fun anymore? What about sports? What about climbing trees? What about riding bikes? Or being a hero? Did you really have to live your life, being careful? Being careful sounded suspiciously similar to being bored. You nodded, but your heart wasn't in it. Mike got you a headband in your favorite hot pink shade, super padded and cushy to protect your head whenever you suddenly collapsed. You pretended that you were only wearing it as part of your hero costume. And it did look pretty cool on you, under your spiky hair and above your vibrant green eyes. It was only 5 months later that you received another earth-shattering pronouncement from the doctor. Quirkless. The shimmers appearing in your vision blended with the shimmer of tears. For what felt like the 100th time, you fell into them, lost. Everyone else in your class got their quirks, including your best friends, Tony and Mia. Tony gained the overpowered ability to change the direction of gravity on any object. He often messed around with it, sending paper clips whizzing around the classroom, and looking innocent when the teacher turned around in annoyance. Mia gained the ability to manipulate electronics, disassembling, reassembling, and creating new gadgets in the blink of an eye. You couldn't understand. Neither of them wanted to be a hero. Tony was confident in his future as an astronaut. Mia was perfectly happy to learn more about tech and build cool stuff. They didn't want to be heroes. So why did they get such awesome quirks? So far, your only ability seemed to be collapsing onto the ground at random. You cried to Dad after a particularly bad day. You'd convinced the gym teacher to let you join the dodgeball game, only to pass out. After all your arguing and assuring that you could do it, you'd made your entire team lose. Why? You sobbed, gripping the material of Dad's graphic t-shirt and probably messing it up with all your snot and tears as you buried your face in his chest. Why am I so weak, Dad? You let out a little scream of frustration. It was loud, but nowhere near the superhuman loudness that your dad could reach with his quirk. That awareness only made your eyes well up even more. Present Mike held your trembling, sobbing form tightly against him, brows drawn together above wavering green eyes. He hated his inability to help you, to cure you, to do something to protect you from what you were going through. If only your mom were still alive. His posture drooped and he hugged you tighter. Hey, little radio star. Look at me, okay? Your tear-streaked face pulled away from his chest slightly to look up. The sight of your red nose and unhappy eyes made his heart hurt. "Hey," he said brightly, "do you know what makes heroes strong? Awesome quirks? Nope. Cool power chords?" you asked stuffily, wrinkling your nose in confusion. Nope. Something even better. Mike lowered his voice to an over-the-top whisper. "There's a secret that heroes use to be strong, even when we're losing a fight or someone else has a better quirk. But this is top secret, okay?" Your eyes grew round at his words, and you nodded seriously, almost eagerly. "Okay," he went on dramatically, green eyes intense. "The secret to a hero's strength is they know what they want to protect." You blinked, confused. How does that make someone stronger? "Well, little radio star," Mike gazed at you steadily. "What if you're facing a super strong bad guy, and he wants to fight you over a sandwich?" "He wants a sandwich?" You checked incredulously. "You heard me." "Well, he can have it, I guess. Maybe he's just hungry." "Good answer. But what if he wants to smash up your school and hurt your friends?" You stiffened in Mike's arms. "No way! I won't let him." "What are you gonna do? He's stronger than you." The thought made you angry. "I don't care. I'll just find a way to win anyway. I'll trick him. I'll distract him while the heroes are on their way. You started listing off ideas as Mike watched your adorably anger-flushed face. "It's the same for heroes, kid. Sometimes we have to fight villains with stronger quirks. But if it was to protect you, little radio star." Mike's hug tightened, and his voice almost sounded dangerous. "If it would protect you, I could defeat anyone." You thought about it as Dad held you, slowly letting it sink in. What do I want to protect? Your memory swam with a million faces and smiles and different laughs and personalities. Tony's sly mischief and overconfidence, his dreams of going to space, Mia's sparkling eyes while talking about tech. People were all so unique, irreplaceable. That was it. You wanted to make sure everybody was safe, so that they had all the time they needed to do the things that only they could do. "Dad," you said resolutely, "I'm going to start winning in life again, no matter how long it takes, because I want to protect everyone." "All right, kid." He flashed you a grin. "If you know what you want, then nothing can stop you." You nodded, already making plans for how the next school day would go. You didn't have to give up just because other people had an advantage. You could still be a hero. You studied the dodgeball game from the sidelines. Tony sat next to you on the bench, swinging his feet idly. The gym teacher blew his whistle sharply as one student pushed another one, and a timeout was called. You stared at the commotion and chaos of running students and whizzing balls. "Tony." "Yeah?" Tony looked at you. "What happened yesterday? When I was unconscious?" Tony smirked. Well, are you sure you want to know?" "Hurry up and tell me." "Fine. As soon as you fell over, you got totally pummeled by balls because you couldn't dodge. Teacher called timeout, and the other team won. Also, I think you drooled on the ground a bit." You glared at him, then refocused on the game. "So, I was an easy target." "Yeah, pretty much." You hopped off the bench, walking to the gym teacher with determination. "Teacher, I want to be in the next game." The gym teacher looked at you sympathetically over his thick glasses. "No, sorry, kid. I could get sued for not considering your disability and letting you get pummeled by balls." You glared up at him. "This time is different. I'll prove it." The teacher looked down at you uncertainly. The resolve and determination in your green eyes was so bright, yet it didn't change the fact that you had narcolepsy. "Kid," he sighed, thinking how to gently tell you no. "Please, teacher." You were so earnest that tears were welling in your bright eyes. The teacher shook his head, slowly giving in. Okay, you can play. But if anything happens, then you'll sit out all future dodgeball games. Deal? You nodded, unflinching. The other students whispered loudly as you joined in for the next round. Your team didn't look very happy. Are you gonna fall asleep on us again, bedhead? Complained one boy. No, I won't, you said, meeting his gaze fiercely. Listen. You dropped your voice to a low, dramatic whisper. Gather around. I have a plan. Your teammates drew closer warily, looking unconvinced as you shared your idea. Are you sure you can do that? Asked the skeptical boy. Yes. I may have a sleep problem, but I'm good at sports. I'm sure I can do this. The skeptical boy nodded. Okay, I'm in. The rest of the group slowly nodded their heads. Yamada, the teacher called impatiently. Ready? Yes, you called as the huddle split up. You met your teammates' eyes with a grin. Let's do this! The gym teacher watched the game in complete bafflement. Whatever plan you'd had, it didn't seem to be going well. Your teammates were getting balls, but they were super indecisive, holding on to them rather than throwing them. Wait a second. Were they collecting the balls? Storing them for a rush attack. The teacher allowed himself a small smile. Not bad. Now! You shouted. Grinning, your teammates threw the balls. And nearly all of them missed. Only one person on the other team was out, and now the other team had all the balls. The shock of the loss seemed to be affecting you. You swayed on your feet, then collapsed. An easy target. It all happened at once. Yamada! The gym teacher shouted, reaching for his whistle. At the same time, the other team sent every single ball hurtling towards your unconscious form. At the last second, your eyes snapped open with a grin, arms and legs shooting out to catch every ball and hug them to your chest. Everyone stared in shock. The way you were laying on your back and using all your limbs, it was like a basket to trap all 6 of the balls. The gym teacher blew the whistle 5 times. Sakai, out. Masaki, out. Tanaka, out. Suzuki, out. Matsumoto, out. The other team immediately began to protest. Teacher, you called our entire team out. That's not fair. She pretended to be asleep. She cheated. The gym teacher hid a smile. That wasn't cheating. That was a move called a fake. It's perfectly legal in every sport, kids. The kids on the sideline started cheering in excitement. That was the fastest dodgeball game ever! You obliterated the entire team out in one move! I want you on my team next time, Yamada! You grinned cheekily, high-fiving some of them as you made your way back to the benches. In the back of the chattering crowd, Tony caught your eye. He gave you a teasing salute and mouthed, "Hail the conquering hero." You rolled your eyes. The gym teacher looked back at the dodgeball court, replaying the victory in his mind. Well, Yamada, you won fair and square, kid. Not bad. A shout from the students made him turn his attention back to them. You lay on the ground, this time passed out for real. Oh snap, Yamada! He blew his whistle at the kids. Step back! Stop crowding her! Tony laughed softly from the benches. Are your fans too much, Yamada? He looked up at the ceiling thoughtfully. Not that I blame them. I'll admit it, Yamada. You're pretty cool. Hi guys, Anya Kay here. The next part will be linked in the description once it's available. After a couple chapters, there will be a time skip to your second year at UA. You'll be in Class 1B, eventual romance subplot with Katsuki Bakugou, unless I change my mind. Can you keep beating strength with strategy? What becomes of your childhood friends as you get older? Is it possible that you could have a quirk? Subscribe and click the bell to make sure you don't miss the next chapter. I hope you're having a good day. Oh, P.S. I'm not going to follow canon events at all. So, anything is possible. Oh, one more postscript. Your name is Nikki. If you wanted to be YN or listener, well, your mom renamed you in this world when you were born. So now you're Nikki Yamada. Watane! See you later.